Hey everyone, this is Kelvin Core from IGN to break down Ubisoft's latest iteration of their open-world shooter franchise, Far Cry 6, in this episode of IGN Deconstructed. Far Cry games have become a staple in the games industry, to the point where they receive criticism for the lack of innovation and stale gameplay loop. But repetitive doesn't necessarily mean boring, which is why it's a franchise I always come back to, for their satisfyingly solid gameplay and to explore whichever locale the game is set in. A few hours into Far Cry 6 and you'll realize that they've taken everything they've learned from previous titles and put them into this one, with minute changes that make for probably the most polished Far Cry experience so far. Far Cry 6 takes place in Yara, a fictional Caribbean island ruled by the dictator El Presidente Anton Castillo, and you play as Danny Rojas, a former officer in the Yaran military who tries to escape the oppression but is inadvertently pulled into fighting for the revolution as a guerrilla. First off, it was definitely a good decision by the developers to have a voice player character again. Seeing and hearing Danny's reactions to what's happening around them really helps in engaging the story, especially with the third-person perspective during cutscenes. While the overarching narrative can be somewhat predictable and less impactful than what I hoped it would be, the more personal stories tied to the main plot are what carry the game and keep it grounded. If you compare it to fighting for a rebellion in Far Cry 4, Far Cry 6 is far more nuanced. Now, you can't talk about a Far Cry game without mentioning its villains. In Far Cry 6, the main antagonist Anton Castillo is brilliantly portrayed by Giancarlo Esposito of Breaking Bad fame. Castillo's backstory and motivations are revealed to you as you progress through the game, and you see how his upbringing has led him to rule the way he does. While the main plot can be dark at times, the optional side missions bring with them a level of fun and humor in between the more serious tones of fighting in a revolution. Helping a murderous rooster satiate his bloodlust? Why not? Hunting for artifacts to appease an ancient deity? Sign me up! Far Cry 6 stays true to the franchise, with its strong shooting mechanics and an open world packed with all sorts of activities and collectibles, but still manages to offer new gameplay elements that keep it fresh in this long-running series. One of the more notable changes is the absence of a skill tree, while still having a leveling system. Only this time round, leveling up unlocks more options for weapons and armor. Enemies also have levels, and going up against them, especially those higher level than you, can be a challenge. But as Juan Cortez, your guerrilla mentor, says, always use the right tools for the right job. Your weapons of choice are everything when engaging enemies, whether you're going guns blazing or the more subtle approach. Fortunately, in Far Cry 6, you're given all available weapon slots at the very start, instead of having to unlock them like in previous games. It's up to you to unlock weapons and treat them with love. And by love, I mean modding the heck out of them, which you'll have a lot of, and not just attachments like scopes or suppressors, but also passive mods like faster move speed while aiming down sights, or chance to heal when damaging enemies. Aside from your traditional guns, bows, and launchers, there are resolver weapons, which are the improvised weapons cobbled together by our mentor Juan, that range from a simple nail gun and flamethrower to an EMP cannon and portable fireworks launcher. Speaking of Juan, he also makes Supremo backpacks, which provide additional mods for passives, but more importantly, an ultimate that recharges passively after use or by taking down enemies. You can go for pure offensive firepower with the Exterminador and its barrage of homing missiles, or maybe the Medico, which releases a cloud of healing gas for you and your buddies. There are 6 Supremos in total, so try them all out to see which fits your playstyle. And finally, armor. Passive skills seen in older titles like reduced movement noise or reduced detection rate are now tied to armor. Other passives include better resistance to certain damage types, better ammo reserves, and better mobility. With the variety of weapons, supremos, and armor, you can pretty much deck yourselves up however you want, and you can even switch them out while exploring the world. Plus, not letting players unlock passives through a skill tree, but instead having to select a few on a case-by-case basis, lets players learn effective decision-making and makes for more dynamic gameplay. There are definitely a lot more to consider when playing Far Cry 6, but fortunately, the game slowly introduces each element so you won't get overwhelmed. Here are a few tips for you to get a head start. Weapons can now be modded with different ammo types, and out of the 5 available, we found that the armor-piercing rounds perform the most consistently against most enemy types, as they're still susceptible to a good headshot. While the explosive rounds sound like they would blast through everything, they're mostly effective against vehicles. Speaking of vehicles, there are a bunch of different ones to choose from. When you get into a new vehicle, The game will prompt you to travel to the closest pickup station to truly unlock it for yourself. You might say, but I'm on a mission, or the station's pretty out of the way. Well, don't worry, because you can take out your phone and scan the vehicle. When you go back to the pickup station, it will be available to you. In keeping with the theme of vehicles, enemy helicopters are a lot harder to take down than in previous games. And that goes doubly so for the tanks. And I mean multiple RPG shots. One early game solution is to stick with the Exterminador Supremo and invest in the damage upgrade. Another is to unlock the EMP grenades to disable enemy vehicles to more easily hijack them or kill the pilot. As for post-launch content, Ubisoft will start by releasing new maps or special operations, which are akin to the expeditions in Far Cry New Dawn, where players are transported to a separate arena to complete objectives and to receive certain rewards. Furthermore, there are 3 crossover missions featuring Danny Trejo, Rambo, and Stranger Things. And finally, those with the Season Pass can look forward to 3 DLC episodes featuring villains from the previous titles. The release of this content will be staggered until March 2022, according to Ubisoft's roadmap. Safe to say, this is the best iteration of Far Cry thus far, and is a culmination of everything the franchise has brought before. Yara is beautiful and a wonderful place to explore, the gameplay is addicting, and overall it is a great game to sink hours into. Far Cry 6 is available for the Xbox Series X and Series S, PlayStation 5, Xbox One, PlayStation 4, Amazon Luna, Google Stadia, and PC. So get your copy today. This is Kelvin Core, and I'll catch you guys next time.